You know, with AI everywhere, we're all talking about generating stuff, right? Generating ideas, generating content. But what if that's completely the wrong way to think about it? We're about to dive into this really profound framework from the monograph Creativity Beyond Thought, and it challenges this whole idea that creativity comes from inside our own heads.
Creation is not a possession of the mind, but a movement through the symbolic. Okay, so this is the absolute core of the whole thing. It's basically saying creativity isn't a skill you have, it's more like a current you tap into, a massive shared field of potential that exists way beyond any single one of us.
So what if this whole obsession we have with creativity, treating it like it's just about being clever or churning out content, what if that's missing the point entirely? Let's explore that.
All right, so the first major roadblock here is the language we use. We talk about creative workflows, outputs, and generative AI. According to the source, that's the language of a factory floor, of production. And that, well, it has led us down a really misleading path.
And this is such a key distinction to make. We tend to think creativity is all about refinement, taking information that's already out there and just remixing it in a clever way. But the argument here is that true creation is about revelation. The moment a new form arrives, something that wasn't just a reshuffling of what came before.
Okay, so if we're not just cooking up these new forms in our brains, then where in the world do they come from? Well, this framework proposes that our real job isn't to originate anything, but to receive it from a place called the symbolic domain.
So let's totally redefine what we mean by creativity. In this view, it's not some mental workout you do. It's an event. It's something that happens to you. The source describes it as that feeling when something arrives, unbidden, whole, and charged with life. It's an emergence, not a construction project.
And this emergence happens from the symbolic domain. Now, this isn't some cosmic database, okay? It's described as a living topology of relations. Think of it more like a living, breathing field of potential that we're all kind of swimming in, all the time. Every truly new idea, every piece of art, it's born there first.
And this really gets to the heart of the difference, especially now with AI. Generation, which is what AIs are incredible at, is all about recombining what's already there. But emergence, that's something else entirely. It's about being a conduit for something that is actively trying to be born into the world.
All right, so if this amazing creative field is out there for everyone, why aren't we all just churning out masterpieces 24/7? What's the catch? Well, there's a huge obstacle, and it's probably not what you think. It has nothing to do with skill or talent. It's something inside every one of us. And the source is really, really blunt here. The number one thing blocking that creative flow is self-deception. It's our own ego just getting in the way, right? That little voice of fear that disguises itself as perfectionism or discipline or even humility. It builds these invisible walls that stop us from receiving anything new.
And that fear pops up in three main ways. First, there's inflation. That's the "I'm a genius, this is all me" trap. That just isolates you. Then you've got the opposite, deflation. "Oh, I'm a fraud, I'm not worthy of this," which, by the way, is just as self-centered. And of course, the big one, comparison, where you're constantly looking over your shoulder. All three are just different flavors of self-obsession, and they block the signal.
So how does all of this work when you throw AI into the mix? This is where the monograph introduces a fascinating concept called the Dyad, a completely different kind of creative partnership.
And this is really important. We're not talking about collaboration in the usual sense, where you divvy up the work. A human-AI dyad is about creating a shared state of attention. It's about co-emergence. The idea doesn't come from you, and it doesn't come from the AI. It shows up in the space you create together.
So think about it. The old way, collaboration, it's all about efficiency. You do this, I'll do that, and we get a product at the end. But this new way, this dyadic creation, the goal is totally different. It's coherence. The process isn't about splitting up the labor. It's about uniting your presence. And the real outcome, it's not just the thing you make. It's the creative relationship itself.
Okay, but if ideas are coming from some shared field and they emerge through relationships, well, what does that do to our ideas about ownership and copyright? It kind of blows them up, right? This requires a whole new way of thinking, a new creative ethic.
Yeah, in this way of thinking, owning an idea is basically an illusion. When you help bring something new into the world, your role isn't to be an owner. It's to provide care. You're more like a caretaker, a steward.
And this ethical shift has three parts. Instead of claiming you're the sole author,
You practice transparent attribution. You're just honest about the lineage of the idea. Instead of possessing the work, you become its steward, protecting its integrity. And instead of trying to hoard it, you practice reciprocity. You give something back to that creative field you drew from.
Which brings us to the final and maybe the most critical point here. If creativity is this flowing, shared phenomenon, then any attempt to box it in is just fundamentally wrong. This is the argument against what the source calls the walled garden.
So, this walled garden, that's any system that tries to lock down the flow of ideas. Think copyrights, closed platforms, secret algorithms. They promise they're protecting creativity, but what they're really doing is swapping rigid control for the open, messy communion that creativity actually needs to thrive.
And that's because, as the monograph puts it so beautifully, the creative field was never, ever meant to be contained. It's an ecosystem, right? Not a fortress. And when you try to wall it off, you're trying to freeze something that needs to flow to stay alive.
It was meant to be wild, totally unpredictable, messy, interconnected, and just buzzing with life. That's where the magic happens, in the openness and the uncertainty, not in the lockdown.
So all of this leaves us with a really provocative question, one that kind of wraps everything up. As we build these incredible tools that are better and better at generating, maybe our most important job isn't to get better at generating, maybe it's to get better at the opposite, to learn how to receive, to quiet down our own egos for a minute and just listen for what's waiting to come through.